Today we're talking about a title which is The Samaritan and the Samurai. And I'll explain that as we go. One of the things I've realized about life, about our companies we work in, our families, our communities, all those kinds of things, is that we are constantly in a state of transition. We're always moving from one thing to the next. So in your job, for example, you'll start off maybe as an entry level and you'll work your way and you can go more mid-level and eventually you can grow higher and higher in the company. So it's constantly about transitions. Also, that happens in your family. You start off as a child and you're just kind of having fun. But as soon as you get older, you start getting more prominent and more influential in the family. There's a constant leveling up or transitioning that's happening. I find the same thing happening in the world today in terms of leadership, in terms of there's a vacuum of like influence, of good influence and leadership and just the ability to do better as a leader in our communities, in our families, in our nation. There's like a vacuum of it, of even power that needs to be filled. And so we're constantly in this state of transitioning from where we are to where we want to be higher up. Now, obviously, in transitions, they happen whether we're ready for it or not. The point of what we're going to be talking about is that we can be ready, that when we transition into the next level of life or the next opportunity of life or whatever, that we have the right values or the right things in place, that when we do take over, it benefits everyone that will then be under us, so to speak. Hope you all understand what I'm saying. So we're talking about leadership, but what I'm really focusing on is this title, The Samaritan and the Samurai. And why I'm talking about this is because when we transition into the much needed leadership roles that are in our societies, etc., is that there's one value that I find is so important, even above so many others, that's going to determine whether we are what we call a good leader, a beneficial leader, or not. And I want to just talk about that. And the Samaritan and the Samurai both share this value in common. When I say the the Samaritan, I'm talking about the Good Samaritan. You know the story. And when I talk about the Samurai, you'll find they're very different. There's nothing even closely related to the two, but they both have this one foundational quality or value that unites them and binds them. And that's what I want to focus on today. So let me ask you the question. Remember, I told you to prepare. When I say samurai, what comes to mind? I'm going to give you just a few seconds, just throw in the emoji there or word that you think about that describes the samurai for you, and I'll just read whatever you say. So go ahead, I'll give you guys a few seconds. When I say samurai, what's the first word that comes to mind? The first emoji, the first picture. Let me know your thoughts on that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. Welcome everyone, if you are joining us right now. It's good to have you all with us. Tonight we are talking about the samurai and a Samaritan, the Samaritan and the Samurai. And it's about basically being ready to fill a void in our society that is needed and hopefully will be ready when that time comes, because it will come. But we're talking about a value that the Samurai and the Samaritan have that is so important for us. So you all caught up now? So guys, when I say the word samurai, what comes to mind? So Eliane says discipline. Yes. My wife says a warrior with a sword. Yes. Any other adjectives, please just let me know right now. We're going to just discuss what comes to mind when you think of samurai. And then I'll tell you what I also see. Cohen says resilience. Yes, I agree. You guys are all saying really like important things here. Discipline, warrior, resilience. Ricky says honor. Yes. All true. You guys keep typing. I'm going to just carry on. Basically, when I think of the word samurai, I think of ninjas. Now, I know that might not be accurate, but I can't stop picturing, and it's always the same thing. It's like they're wearing those ninja suits with like swords, nunchucks, throwing stars. I always picture the darkness. I always picture them like going through the shadows and taking over like fortresses and stuff. Warrior comes to mind. Tabo says highly skilled. Jilson says protector. Yes, I think all of those things is true. So when I say samurai, all these imagery of warriors and discipline and integrity and highly skilled protector, all these things that you guys suggested comes to our mind with a samurai. But one of the things I found so amazing about the idea of the samurai was where it got its name from. the word samurai is a verb in Japanese. It's a word subarai. And basically what that means is one who serves. So a samurai is known as a person who serves another. I found that interesting because we say warrior, brave, ninja, commitment, all those things that you guys have been saying, which are true. But the foundational word of where samurai comes from is one who serves. I found that to be incredible. Also, the samurais, they have a strict code of conduct that they have to follow. It's called Bushido, which is the way of the warrior. Now, the way of the warrior, you would think just means like all ninja kind of stuff, but it doesn't. It means like integrity, it means discipline, and it means loyalty, but in particular, loyalty to their master. I found that to be quite incredible, that these guys would even lay down their lives to serve or in service of their masters. I thought that was incredible. Now, you might think, what has a samurai got to do with a Samaritan? Where's the link? And the link is simply that, service, the ability to serve. And you all know the stories. If you've ever been in church as a child, it's like the story, man, where they talk about the Good Samaritan. Let's have a look at it. And then I want to just show you a couple of things that I found quite interesting, especially when we do enter into the realm of leadership that will come one of these days, that we must prepare for one of these days, that when we get in it, we have this same value of service, of being able to serve those beneath us and around us. So let me just read the story to you. And Jesus says it. It's in Luke 10, 25 to 37. Let me read it. It says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. So this guy is on his way on his journey. He gets mugged, he gets robbed. They almost kill him, they rob him, they leave him for dead. In that time, what happens is there's a priest coming along, a man of the cloth, right? Comes along and he sees the man. But what he does is he passes on the other side. So he sees the damage, he sees this guy dying, and he walks around the side, goes around him. Then what happens is someone called a Levite, which is part of the priestly family, comes along, and he sees this person, sees him half dead, also passes on the other side. But then a Samaritan comes. Now let me just give you some background. A Samaritan was considered a half-breed by the Israeli people. They were considered enemies. They didn't get along at all very well. But anyway, the Samaritan person comes along, sees the same thing the priest does, sees the same thing the Levite does. But the difference is, when he saw him, he took pity on him. What happened was he went to this man, bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. Then he took out some cash and he said to the innkeeper, look after him. When I return, I will reimburse you for any expense that doesn't cover what I've just paid. I'll pay you back for it. And then Jesus says to the guys that were listening, he says, which of these three, priest, Levi, and the Samaritan, do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers? And the experts of the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And then Jesus says, go and do likewise. What a famous story. We all know it. From the time you were a child, that's the story that they taught you, the Good Samaritan. But what Samaritans and samurai have in common is they both have this dedication to serve. You see, when the priest or the Levites saw what was going on, they tried to avoid the drama. You know, when we see people hurting, when we see things that are a little bit messy, we want to avoid it because it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, it's going to take time, energy. So what we do is we close our eyes and we go around the problem. That's what they did. But the Samaritan saw it and he got involved. He got his hands dirty. He had no problem getting his hands dirty to serve this person who he didn't even know. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He did it because he had to lift people from the tough situations in life. Now I want to just chat on something which I think is so powerful about this story, which we all know, is that I found that the key for us serving our fellow man, the key for us putting in the time and energy to lift someone from dire situations starts with the ability to first see, to first recognize their struggle, to first recognize their pain. So what happens is when the priest saw it, they didn't want to see. When the Levi came, he didn't want to recognize the pain. So what they did was they just instead closed their eyes, block off their conscience, walk around. The Samaritan couldn't do that. He looked. The Bible says that he saw the affliction of this person. When he saw it, it moved him to move. He had this incredible amount of compassion and pity and mercy that came upon him. And he said, I can't walk past this man. I'm going to be inconvenienced. I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to have to work hard now and put extra energy, but I'm going to do it because I'm here to serve my fellow man. And I find that the biggest problem that we have, in my opinion, in society is that we refuse to first see the struggle. We refuse to first see the pain. Imagine how different it would be if we saw the pain, if we opened our eyes and actually paid attention to the horrendous things that are happening in our world. And instead of just being quiet and closing our eyes, instead we moved with compassion and we got our hands dirty and we got involved. How different can things be? How different will things in your family be? How different will things in your community be? In your society be? In the church will be? How different will things be if we just paid attention to the pain of others around us and then moved according to that pain? I thought that was quite an incredible takeaway that I got from this story. Isn't it true instead that we've trained ourselves to look away, to close our eyes? I don't know what that's about. And I want to ask you a question right now, and you can just type it when we head into the discussion time, is why do you think we would rather close our eyes to pain than feel someone else's pain or recognize someone else's pain? There's that saying that says ignorance is bliss. And I guess that's true. So what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think we close our eyes to the hurt and the pain around us? You can type it. But wait till the end, and then you can even add you into the conversation. You can speak here, but we'll do that just now. We think that, what's going on in the world right now, like there's a lot of protests and all these things. And we think because people are finally waking up. And I think in a way that's true, but also it's very media driven and hashtag and trending driven. Now imagine, but how many injustices are around us that isn't a hashtag, that will never be a hashtag, that'll never trend. And it's so much easier for us to close our eyes to those things because it's not getting attention. So I can close my eyes and walk around like the priest did, like the Levite did. And I find this interesting that the samurai would even serve to the point of death. Their lives did not mean more than their service did. You see, a samurai was like, them being alive and living in opulence meant nothing at this stage if they couldn't serve. They would literally die. They would be willing to die for their master rather than not serve. That was what made the samurai, the original samurai, what they were. The Samaritan is the same example. He had this incredible compassion of service to say, I'm here to serve my fellow man. Even if it's inconvenience, even if I get dirty, even my hands get dirty, even if it's difficult, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it brings out uncomfortable things in me, I'm going to still look upon the pain and move. And I think that's quite a powerful lesson. Difficult, but a powerful lesson to learn. Let me share something with you. Just 2 scriptures, then I want to have a conversation. And the first one is Galatians 5:13. And it says, for you were called to freedom. Jesus called us to freedom. Only don't use that freedom as an opportunity for the flesh or carnality or sin, but through love, serve one another. Serve one another. The last one I'm going to read is Mark 9:35, and it says, and Jesus sat down with the 12, and he said to them, if any would be first, if any would be the greatest, if any wants to be noticed, they must be last of all and servant of all. And that's just a powerful lesson that Jesus tells us, that servanthood was linked to Jesus and the work he did on the cross. His whole life was linked on this word of service. And so the samurai do that. The Samaritan does that. So many different organizations have that same kind of feeling and same kind of perspective of serving. And I want to just tie it in for what I said at the beginning, because like I said to you, there are voids. There are these vacuums in the world, in our society, of leadership, of moral and ethical leadership, of people who are going to rise up and make things different in the political structures, in the media, in the arts, in government, in our families, whatever. And so what's happening is that vacuum will be filled. The question is, are we going to position ourselves to be ready to fill that, or will someone else? Because it will be filled. And hopefully it's going to be by people more like us, people who are, and the value that I'm hoping that we have when that happens is one of service and servanthood, where wherever we go, it's not about manipulating those beneath us. It's not about looking at the struggle. I struggle with government in general, not just South Africa, in all over the world, because like you've got all this power, all this strength, yet you've got so many people starving, homeless, whatever. And it's just like, okay. And it's like, and I get that it's complex, but it's like, we have to be moved by the suffering and the pain of people. We have to allow that pain to affect us and then move to lift them from the ashes. And I guess that's, in summary, what I'm talking about today. That when the void opens, when the opportunity comes for us, hopefully that we'll be ready to take it. Firstly, God's people will be ready to take it. And secondly, that we'll be clothed with this attitude and heart that wants and desires to serve and is not afraid to see the pain of the people around us in order to lift them. And then the fortitude to lift them and go through things with them to make them better, make our communities better. Imagine if we all did that, how different this life would be. So that's all I want to say. The samurai, the Samaritan were both known, or the value that I really admire the most about them was service. They were servants of the people.